What is up, Merce Nation? Javier Mercedes here for yet again another Passion in Progress podcast, where we talk to people and what they're passionate about and how the pursuit of that passion is a driving force behind their progress. And boy, oh boy, do we have quite the individual on the podcast today. Mike Johnson, founder of Ground Rush Media. Can you say, hey, Mike?
Hey, Mike. Oh, what's up, guys? How are you? Merce Nation, I'm glad to be a part of the family right now.
Just a couple facts. He, in 12 months of the company, has gotten 38 Tele Awards and 9 Summit Creative Awards for a media company. And then some of his clientele includes the Atlanta Hawks, Detroit Tigers, MGM Pictures, Universal Music, and HBO, to name a few. But the guy has a much storied background that I am very interested to hear about in terms of radio and production and just media in general. So to begin with, I guess like in Baltimore where it started out, or is there any like kind of better background that you want to say about yourself before we dive into that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
Or go ahead.
Sure. So background on me real quick. I was born on a tiny island in the middle of the Caribbean called St. Croix. And it's equivalent to growing up in any small town, right? As a child, you have big dreams and you live in this small town, you feel confined, and you know what is it going to take for me to be great and find myself and so on and so forth. Long story short, growing up through high school, I had, this kind of affinity towards, recording and music and just like any other kid. I started taking a lot of interest in just broadcasting. And the way I did that was just like any teenager would do. I would listen to the radio, but instead, back before we had all this great technology, what you'd have to do is you'd have to call in the request lines. And I got to be really good friends with one of the DJs that was, doing one of the favorite shows that I listened to. So I would do like these guest DJ appearances over the phone. Like I'd call him up and I'd say like, listen, we could do a really cool bit where you pretend like I'm in the studio. It was just like really like quirky.
I love how
teenage
even
stuff,
at the beginning,
right?
That's like that's how you were.
We were just coming up with
love
bits.
It, man.
Coming up with bits. And for some reason, this guy kind of gravitated towards me and he would go along with it. Well, long story short, I was a freshman in high school when that happened. Got to be really good friends with the guy. And right around my sophomore year, my grandmother got really sick. I was really, really close to my grandmother. Well, unfortunately, she had passed away from breast cancer. And I was just really adamant about, like, I just did not want to go to her funeral. Like, I was just like, I'm not going. It's just not happening, blah, blah, blah. And my mother was like, why not? My dad was like, listen, if he doesn't want to go, don't let him go. Like, it's a tough time. Mm-hmm. So what my dad did was he actually called up the radio station and he told the DJ, he was like, listen, his grandmother died. We're taking him out of school, but I kind of don't want him to be by himself. So would you mind if like he came up to the radio station? If you got just any work, like take out the garbage, get me some coffee, like he would love that.
It's an interesting way to start.
Swear to God, like I walked into that radio station and to this day, I will always say like, that was my grandmother's last gift to me before she left. You know what I mean? Was allowing me an opportunity to do this because, like, my eyes opened up like you wouldn't believe. Like, it was just like, holy smoke, like, this is radio and this is what it's like and this is what I want to do, right? Mm-hmm. So when the whole, situation was going on with my grandma and her passing and so on and so forth, I just really just buried all my emotion into this. And that was, like, me channeling myself and my energy into what I wanted to do. So here I am, this 15-year-old kid that's like going around this radio station. The radio station owner now sees me in here. He actually takes a liking to me. He offers me a part-time job, right?
Of course.
Hold on a second. I'm 15. I'm about to work at a radio station, but not the way you think. Like I got the graveyard shift that nobody wanted, Saturday from midnight to 6, playing music. There was no talking. I just played music. But you know what? At 15, it doesn't matter. That's the best gig you could ever have. We're up. We're on the phones. We're teenagers, yada, yada, yada. So
what year was that?
That was, I hate to say.
Did you just hear the change in his voice right there?
I hate to say it. It was actually in the late 80s.
So in the context of what you're talking about, I think what I love about that is that you were basically like a Spotify in terms of like getting to play music for other people on a mass like thing. And
right.
But in order to understand that, it's in today's day and age, I feel like the younger generation can't really grasp that concept that like in order to go get music, it just wasn't a thing. Like you can't just like go on a computer and get
grab
music.
It. Exactly.
Like
Exactly. And that is actually, you know what? Now that you say that, I might actually hit Spotify up for some copyright issues, or because I'm the original. But anyway, I worked at the radio station throughout high school, right? So I'm gonna give you the cliff notes. So I became this great stud because, like, I'm on the radio now, and it got to the point where they actually allowed me to start cracking the mic, and I had my own show on the weekends, and I get to go to school, and everybody knows I'm the popular kid on campus, and so on and so forth. Well, it got to the point where I was so obsessed with the broadcast portion of things, I started like skipping school just to go to the radio station.
Of course.
Right? So I'd skip school, and I'd like get my mom to like write me a note to say, well, actually, I wouldn't get her to write me a note. I'd wait till she was going to work. Right before she got in the car, I'd have her sign her name at the bottom of a paper, and I would fill in the rest. Please excuse my son from school because he's sick, blah, 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 blah. Only so I could go to the radio station. Well, long story short, I did that throughout high school, and I really, really started thinking about a career in broadcast. So right out of high school, I started applying to radio stations, right? I was just like, you know what? I need to find a gig. Well, somebody at the radio station actually told me, they said, listen, there's a really big convention that happens in Atlanta. And if you can get to that convention, right, chances are you could probably meet a program director, have him listen to your demo tape, and he'll probably, you never know, he could hire you. Well, sure enough, that's what I did. I saved enough money, and I came to Atlanta, and I couldn't afford to stay at the hotel where the convention was. So I stayed probably about 5-6 miles away. I walked there every day, and I passed out my resume and tape to every single program director that I saw that came in front of me. Right?
Hustle.
And like literally, like I was hustling. Like I got up at 7 a.m. I was at the hotel where the convention was. I passed out tapes until I had no more. Went home went back to the hotel that morning, only to do it again over the course of 3-4 days. And it was the middle of a Georgia summer, right? So it was really hot outside.
And humid, probably.
Yep. Now, wouldn't you know it, I passed out enough where one guy, when I got back to St. Croix, one guy called me and said, listen, I am the program director of V103 here in Atlanta. And we are owned by CBS. I loved your stuff. We don't have any positions open here, but I'm passing your stuff on to our other sister stations because they're currently looking for somebody. Well, wouldn't you know it, he did, because I thought he was, just, yeah, sure, whatever. Yeah, you're going to pass it along. Well, he sure enough did. And I got calls from both stations that he passed it along. One was a station in Dallas. The other was a station in Baltimore. I chose to take the station in Baltimore. I really wanted to go to school in Baltimore, too, as well. So I did. I got hired to do evenings, 6 to 10 at night, at the 19th largest market in the country. Little boy from St. Croix, an island that had no more than 100,000 people on the island. Here I am now speaking to 4 million people, right? It's crazy.
How about that for a story?
So it was pretty gnarly. Cliff notes into my life, like basically I did that for some years. Left Baltimore after my contract was up, got fired, call it what you want. They didn't renew my contract, so I decided I wanted to pursue the career in another market, and I applied to a radio station here in Atlanta. At the time, they didn't have any full-time positions. They only had a part-time position open, so they hired me for part-time on air. At the time, I took it. It wasn't what I wanted, but I took it. And then, in the process of taking that job and coming to work here in Atlanta, I found a new love for something else within the broadcasting industry. I was an actual on-air personality. I actually found a love for doing post-production, which was also another career that you can do in the radio business. And basically all that entailed was me just doing commercials for people, right? It was a pretty sweet gig. I was pretty creative. So, I thought, what? I might be good at this. They offered me more money doing it. So I said, yeah, I'll take it. It's still within what I'm doing. So let me just go and do that and be really good at that. So I got really good at actually doing voiceovers and making radio commercials. And it got to the point where clients of the radio station started sidetracking, coming to me on the side to say, I'll pay you to do my radio spots. Because the way the radio station does it is real generic. Your stuff is really good. And if I can't get you every time, I might as well pay you so I can guarantee.
I love how that works.
So what happened, the money from them got a lot bigger than the check that I was making. Right? So I started I put my radio station work to the side, and I was just doing like my side work. Well,
Mm-hmm.
the general manager of that station started noticing like my work started really falling to the wayside, except for certain types of clients. She actually picked up on that. So she was like, "You're not getting paid for this stuff, are you?" "No, I'm not getting paid. What are you talking about?" No. Well, she did some investigating and I was getting paid. So she brought me in one day and I could tell by the sound of her voice, because I'm supposed to be to work at 9:00 every morning to do all these commercials throughout the day. It was like 3:00. I hadn't been to work yet because I was at home doing all my side work. Like all my clients were calling me for side work, right?
Yeah.
So I got the call from the general manager. She said, you need to get in here right now. I knew exactly what that meant.
Mm-hmm.
You're getting fired today. So I didn't even I just picked up my keys and I just went in.
Because you're like, by the time I get fired, I'm back here
you're
working on more stuff.
So I sat down. I really tried to save my job here. So she sits me down and she says, because something happened where a client's commercial got really messed up, and it was my job to make sure that it didn't happen that way, and I wasn't doing my job. So she goes, I'm going to ask you again, are you doing side work? I said, I'm trying to save my job because I was like, I don't know if this side thing's going to last forever. So I said, no, I'm not doing any side work.
Oh, God.
I'm not doing any side work. So then but she had so much evidence against me. She's like, you're not? Then explain this to me. Bam. Right? You're fired. So at that point, I'm now fired. So now the cat's out the bag. So I said, so she goes, so what do you have to say for yourself, right? Since you're not doing any side work and you just lost your job, do you have anything to say for yourself? I looked her in the eye, I said, no, if you're done now, I have a whole bunch of side work I need to do at home, so I'll be leaving now. And that was the end of that. That was the end of kind of like me actually stepping in front of, stepping my foot into an actual radio station. That was in 1999, right? Mm-hmm. I'll never forget going home after getting fired. At this point, it was like 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I had this really cheap, because I was young, so I had this really cheap like leather chaise. I just sat on it. And I looked up at the ceiling and I said to myself, like, here's the pathway now. You're at the point where the road splits into a Y. You can go down either path. You can try to find another job, right, and keep doing what you're doing, or you can actually take what has been created for you with this side work that you've been doing and kind of make it into a business. And I literally steered at my ceiling from 5 o'clock that afternoon. I'll never forget till 1 o'clock in the morning. Didn't get up, didn't eat, didn't anything. I was just like, what do I do? What do I do? Do I do this? If I do this, I was just running the plays in my head. Like, if I go work for a radio station, it's safe and I'll have insurance and I'll have a check every 2 weeks and blah, blah, blah. If I go down this path, I don't have any of that, but I don't have anything and I could build anything I want, right? Mm-hmm. And I just sat there, and then my roommate came in, because I had a roommate at the time. He was like, man, what are you doing in the dark, right? And I explained to him, and he pretty much sat there and he said, listen, brother, like, you have everything that you need to be successful. I don't even know why you're even sitting here. Like, the choice can be more obvious. Like, you need to go down the path that you've been chasing. So I took a deep breath and I said, all right, I'm going to try it, right? I'm not going to, no resumes, no nothing. Let's just move in the direction that we've been moving. And wouldn't you know it, like 2 days later, like, I had, like, one of my mentors in the voiceover business. He called me, and he was like, I called the radio station looking for you, and they said that you weren't there anymore. What's going on?
I love that.
And he goes, so I said, yeah, I lost my gig. He goes, listen, man, don't worry about that. He goes, I got tons of freelance work that I need, and you're right down the alley of what I need. So basically, if you want to work with me, I'll pay you $2,000 a month, right? Mm-hmm. So I was like, okay, I got side business, and I got $2,000 a month, right? And what he wanted me to do for him was he would voice the stuff, he would send it to me, and I would produce it.
You just chop it up
I
and
would
add
chop
music
it out,
and all
music
this.
and so on and so forth. All that. Bam, boom, bam, bam, boom, boom, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? All that stuff. So I did that with him for a while, learned a lot. All right? Did that with him for about 2-3 years. Mm-hmm. Learned a lot from him. And in the process of that, once again, I'm stuck again. Like, I'm in this rut, right? I'm getting comfortable. I said, I can't get comfortable anymore. I got to figure out something else, right?
Yeah.
So he asked me, he said, what are you trying to do in this game? Like, where are you trying to go? I said, I really am thinking, I kind of want to break off and kind of start doing my own thing, but not compete, because I'm not competing against him. Like, to me, he was like God, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm not going to compete. I just really want to break off, and I kind of want to start concentrating on who I am and creating kind of like a name for myself in this industry. And I want to do, he goes, what are you thinking? I said, I really want to open up a firm, a creative firm, right? Mm-hmm. Where I have my audio work, and then I have video work that I can do. I have digital computer coding stuff that I can do. Like, it's pretty much a one-stop shop advertising slash creative agency, right? Because I'd never heard of something like that before. And the reason that thought kind of came to my mind was in the process of doing all this freelance audio stuff, I'd have a lot of agencies that would come to me for voice work or production work. And then once they had my piece, they'd have to take it to a post house. And then once that happens, they'd have to transcribe all that into like print. So they'd have to go to a print house. Or if they wanted digital, they'd have to go to separate. There was never really a one-stop shop that could keep a company's branding message consistent throughout the entire, campaign or, anything. So hence I said, I want to create a firm. And I'm going to create a firm that'll do all these things under one roof. I didn't know how I was going to do that. I just knew I was going to do it. So then here's a caveat to how I kind of entered into that. So I'm doing all this audio stuff. I break off from my mentor and I start working at this idea. So I get a call from a good friend of mine that worked with me at the radio station I just got fired from. We all know him as, I know him as Chris, you know him as Ludacris, right? So Chris calls me up and Chris says, listen, I'm working on my first album and I swear I'm going to get signed. And I don't have a lot of dough right now to pay you, right, if any, but I swear to God, like, if you do this for me, I swear I'm going to look out for you. Now, here I am, kind of like I'm starting a business. I don't need to do any work for free. You know what I mean? But something in my gut said, just do it. Like, one, he's your boy. What do you have to lose? Blah, blah, blah. So I did it, right? So I did some work on Chris's album. It was like some creative skit stuff on his album. It did really well, right? He got signed. It wasn't because of me, but just collectively, everybty.
What was that Southern Hospitality, that album?
No,
or?
This was Incognito was the name of it. This is before Southern Hospitality came out, right? So we did that, and then that's when his first album on Def Jam, he got signed to Def Jam. So he got signed. I heard about it. I mean, I wasn't about to, you got signed, blah, 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 blah. It was like, cool, you got signed, cool. But the next thing you know, his product manager calls me. Yeah, this is, Suzanne Burgeon. I was told to call you. Chris told me to give you a call because from what we understand, he's going to be doing you're going to be doing his marketing, right?
You're like, oh, okay.
Cool. First of all, here we are. So I'm just an audio guy. I have no way of doing video, right? She says, so we're going to need audio spots. We're going to do video commercials, right? I straight up lied. I said, okay, I have no idea how to do anything video oriented, right? So I said, curious, how much do you guys, what's your budget for these spots? She gave me the number. I said, I need to figure out how to do video now, right? Like right now, right? I don't know how, but I'm going to figure it out. Long story short, I got a computer. I got some guys, like some intern guys. I was like, listen, I'm going to pay you X and X. Can you figure out how to do this commercial? This is how I want it done. I'm going to do the audio. You're going to do the video. And this is what we're going to do. By far, if I look at that spot today, like, first of all, if you looked at that TV commercial today, you'd be like, what were you thinking? Like, what is wrong with it? It was so bad. But for some reason, somebody thought it was good. Somebody somewhere thought it was great. And they were like, this is awesome, blah, blah, blah. Let's continue doing it. So long story short, I picked up Def Jam as a client. From Def Jam, it's crazy.
You just dropped that.
So seriously, I picked up Def Jam as a client, so I started doing a lot of stuff for Def Jam. As a result, other people see your stuff. So, everybody in the industry talks. So as a result of picking up Def Jam, somebody in the Universal world saw my work, and Universal Corporate called me, right? I was like, we want to do this for blah, blah, blah. So I started doing stuff for Universal Corporate. Then I started doing stuff for a lot of the labels throughout,
the music industry.
Throughout the music industry.
Yeah.
As a result of that, so then I'm like, okay, cool. Now we're doing video. Now we're doing audio. I'm onto something here. Like, this is cool. Now, keep in mind, the whole time this is happening, this is still happening in the basement of my home. Like, I have no, office space.
What years was this around?
This was, 2000 to between 2 years. So I was in my basement for 2 years. So from 2000 to 2002.
The reason I ask is because I love the concept of what you're doing and where the internet is at that point in time. Because you got to remember that camera, you can't just go out to a store and buy like a DSLR and get that professional look right off the bat. Like
everything was
you are going from literally the ground up.
Yep, everything was still analog. Like, I'll put it to you like this: we had just started, kind of like we were still in that phase of like MP3s are cool, and you know what I'm saying. Like, you can send MP3 files and like quickly in the CD quality of it. So that's where we're at, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you saw like the type of equipment I had during that time versus what we have now, you know what I mean? What we did it on, by the time I was like up and running and we had a full-fledged Avid system, you know what I mean? You could do that now on a MacBook Pro and make it look 10 times better than it would on the Avid system from 2000 or, you know what I mean?
And like probably 2 weeks faster.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? And we were still using tape, you know what I mean? So we were still using tape and all that stuff. So, it's an interesting evolutionary phase that we were going through too as well, with technology coming out and doing, giving us the ability to do these things, especially with the fact that I lived in Atlanta and these clients were in New York. Because if you weren't in New York or LA, you really weren't getting any of the business.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So the fact that we had to use technology to our advantage to show these people, like, listen, man, it doesn't matter if I'm in Atlanta or if I'm in New York, you're gonna get the same quality regardless. So between the internet on the brink and becoming a really good friend of ours, and a lot of FedEx bills. You know what I mean? I was I was able to work it out. So we evolve, and once again, this is a short story. Like, we evolved from doing, like, we got the audio. So a lot of people are using us for audio. Like, people use me for voiceovers. I got clients that come into town to do voiceover sessions with me, or my voiceover talents. I've just now opened up this video department. I need to start an internet department, because this internet thing is
I love how I asked that question, right? And that's where it was going. That's cool.
Like, I need to start like a digital department, whatever that means. Like, this is the new thing, so let's start it, right?
And you're still in your basement, or
actually, we're getting ready to move out of our basement. So we are at the point where we're 2 years in, and the video portion and the audio portion have taken off. I've now picked up like clients, like I said, every single label. BET called me. I started doing stuff for network TV. MTV called me. I started doing stuff, a couple of different pieces for MTV.
Viacom?
Yeah, for Viacom, exactly. So, that started kind of taking over. So that's doing really well and really healthy. So I'm like, all right, cool. Let's start an internet portion of the business and let's grow that. So I brought that part in, and I brought in a whole bunch of designers. Once again, I know nothing about the internet, like, other than what I use it for, right? So I bring in some designers, and I'm like, we're going to start like this web portion of the business. So boom, I bring in like 4 or 5 people and I hire them, right? And they just sit there, and they literally sat there for probably about 8 to 9 months, because I didn't know what to do with them. And
they clocked in, clocked out, and then they were just...
Well, to a degree, like, they were hipping me to what they do and how they do it. I just didn't know how to sell it. That's the problem.
So it sounds like they were motivated to do stuff.
Yeah.
It was just like, I don't know how to implement this yet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, don't get me wrong. I didn't know what to do with them. Like, they would tell me, but I didn't know how to translate that to a client.
Yeah.
Right? But to put it in perspective, I started saying to myself, like, I need to pay closer attention to it. I just don't have the time, because I have 2 thriving departments right now that I cannot ignore, because that's keeping the lights on and paying their salaries as they sit here, right? So once again, it's just so funny how the universe works. So I actually go to dinner with a client, right? It's actually a video client, a client that we're doing a series of video stuff for, marketing wise. So we end up at this restaurant, steakhouse here in Atlanta. Our reservation is for 8:00. There's another gentleman and this other gal that showed up, and I guess his reservation was for 8:00 too as well. The hostess said that we would be seated next. Well, we're sitting there watching everything happen, and the guy that came in after me, he was about to be seated, so I went up and I was like, listen, what's the deal? Like, we've been sitting here for a while. Well, why am I not getting seated? Then the guy actually said something smart to me, and I turned to him, and we had words, right? And it literally got a little bit heated, to the point where he's like, we need to step outside. The guy did. So I stepped outside with him, and he calmed it down, right? Long story short, he apologized. I apologized. I'm not going to get into the details of what we talked about, because it really wasn't anything. But we got to talking, right, after we calmed it down. and he was a product manager for Anheuser-Busch, right?
Of course he was.
Right. I swear to God, I'm not making any of this up. This really all happened. So we get to talking, and we exchange cards. I didn't think anything of it, right? Sorry about it, blah, blah, blah. I have an agency, blah, blah, blah. What do you do? I live here. Yeah, small talk, exchange cards. We all went to dinner. Everybody had merry old time. It is what it is. A week later, the guy calls me, right? It's Jesse Harris. Remember I met you at blah, blah, blah from Anheuser-Busch. Yeah, what's going on? Got a chance to, look at your stuff. I really like your stuff. I'd like to invite you to come to St. Louis and pitch for some business. We're looking at hiring a digital agency for one of our brands, right, at the time. Okay. All right, cool, I'll come. Well, hold on. Are you paying for it? Like, I know nothing about this, right? Like, digital stuff. I was like, yeah, we'll fly you out, blah, blah, blah. Just come sit. So we get to the meeting, and it's for at the time, it was for a new product they were launching called Bud Select. And here I am sitting now with my internet people that have really not worked for the past 8 or 9 months, right? And I'm sitting in a room with them listening to this request for proposal for a digital piece, RFP for a website for the Bud Select site. Now, I am also in the room with some pretty big name agencies, Big Interactive and BBDO and these guys. Like, these are some huge agencies. I'm like, there's no way I'm gonna win this business. Like, it's impossible, right? So they give us a deadline, and we go back to Atlanta, and we come up with by far what would be the most technologically advanced type of website that you could ever see. Like, we decided to do a mock-up. Like, what they asked for was just basically, can you write down what you would do, send it to us, and we'll look at everybody's proposal, and we'll pick the agency from there. I said, nah, we're not going to do that. We're actually going to build a site. Let's build the website for them. Because first of all, you guys haven't been working for 9 months. Let's build a website as an example, and that's going to be our proposal, right? And so we built this really cool website, and we packaged it really well, and we built like this really cool structure for it. And long story short, there was a little CD, and I built this really cool structure that looked a lot like the Bud Select logo. Like, I did a wood type thing, and I put the CD in it, and it put it in a crate. I literally had to have a freight company come pick it up, and I shipped it to St. Louis. Everybody else is just emailing stuff in or mailing stuff in. I'm sending you a big crate, right? The way that it happened is the lady that was in charge of picking the agency, she's in a meeting, right? And I told the freight company, nobody gets this freight. She has to sign for this freight. I don't care if it's an assistant, anybody. It's too much money at stake for this, right? Because it was a huge check. So she's in a meeting. She gets called out because they're like, there's a freight guy here, and he says he won't release it to me. You're the only one that can sign, blah, 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 blah. So this big box comes into her office, right? So what the hell? She opens it up. She sees it's our proposal. We get a call. Boom, immediately, right? Immediately. That's awesome. Right? Wasn't even a question. So we won the business, all right?
Over like BBDO and all those other places.
We won the business.
Like, knowing from my background, I know how big these firms are.
Huge.
They're
huge.
I can't put context to it, but they're very big.
But let me put it in context too as well. The amount of money that what Anheuser-Busch was paying for this job for a BBDO was nothing. So they probably didn't put a lot of effort into it, right? It probably didn't make. They just did it because they're involved with Anheuser-Busch in some way, shape, or fashion. Yeah. So just to, we'll do it. We'll come and we'll entertain it, right?
Yeah.
So, but for me, a small firm like myself, that kind of dough was like, we'd never seen that kind of money written on a check before. Like, there are a lot of zeros at the end of it.
Yeah.
That change a lot of things, right? So long story short, we won the business, and we did that, right? That turned into business. What's the theme park that they own? Busch Gardens. Sorry, my bad. Busch Gardens. So Busch Gardens saw what we did for Bud Select. So Busch Gardens calls us, right? We get that business, and the business just grows. We do really well. Long story short, right? We do really well, and we get all these great clients. Like, I'm talking about Anheuser-Busch. We're doing stuff for Britney Spears. We're doing stuff for her sister, Jamie Lynn Spears, and so on and so forth. Everything is great, right? So I'm 8 years in. Things are great. I'm working myself to the bone, though. Like, things are just crazy, busy. Things are good, right? 2008 happens. Boom. crash. Everything crashes.
Recession.
Recession crashes. Budget stop. Everything happens. I go into this huge depression, right? There's no money. I got to start laying off people, right? I have a thriving 25-person firm, and I don't have any budgets. You know, I mean, we've done pretty all right to sustain for a little bit, but this was so long I could do this. So it's starting to mess with me psychologically, right? But wouldn't you know it, we're going to buckle down, roll our sleeves up. I'm going to build this firm up to be, you know, to be strong, recession-proof, foundation. Everything's going to be amazing. So I literally start working, looking under every rock, not leaving any rock unturned, so on and so forth. Then next thing you know, I start tiring myself out. I come to work one day, and it was one of those things where I was just working so much, I stopped taking a salary to make sure my guys were paid. I got to work one day. I literally I just left work at 6 o'clock. I came home, I slept for 2 hours, went right back to work, came back to work. And I went outside, because this is a time when I had a really bad habit, because I used to smoke cigarettes, right? Came out to have a cigarette, and I just felt like my heart started beating real fast. I literally thought I was having a heart attack. I was like, this is the end. Like, this isn't how this ends. Like, I built this great firm. I'm trying to save it. Now this is going to happen to me. So I called my wife. I was like, listen, you need to get to the office right quick, because I don't want to freak anybody out. I need to go to the hospital. You know, you'd think to yourself, well, why don't you call 911? Well, it wasn't that. I didn't know what was going on. Something weird was happening, but I just didn't know what it was. They took me to the doctor. They did a full 120-point inspection. Pretty much, dude, you had a panic attack. You're stressed out. I was stressed out because, you know, literally the ship that I built was sinking. Mm-hmm. And I was trying to plug the holes because there was no money, no nothing. I couldn't. So I decided, you know what? I'm just going to scale back. So I started laying some people off. Mm-hmm. I kept the original 8, because it was 8 of us that originally started, right? Mm-hmm. This company. I kept the original 8, and we tried to work through things. But the more that I actually started seeing like this wasn't working, I had to scale back. And I was like, I just got to stop for a second. I need a break. So I went on this 2-year sabbatical, right? Where I kind of shut things down for a bit. I kind of said, guys, you know, I'm going to give you X, X, and X so you can be all right, but I can't do this anymore. I need to stop. Mm-hmm. I need to take some time for myself. So I went on this 2-year sabbatical where I started running, and I started doing like healthy things. Like I started racing, triathlons. You know, you think you're going through some kind of midlife crisis. Mm-hmm. And I was just trying to find myself. And it took so that was 2008, the recession happened. We stretched out till about 2010. We were able to kind of like keep afloat till then. And then 2010, I kind of just said, you know, I'm going to shut it down. And I left. And I just said, you know, I just need some time. I've just been going for the past 10 years, and I've been going hard and strong, and I've not taken a break. So I took the 2 years off, and I just had to find myself. I went through a lot of anxiety, and I think a lot of it was because Ground Rush defining who I was. Like if I wasn't Ground Rush, I wasn't anybody. Because I was known as a man. I had 38 teles. I had 12 summits. I had all these great awards in my industry, and now I can't even land a client. You know what I mean? Like this is like, what is going on? So in that process, in that 2-year process, I stopped. I just kind of just unplugged. I really didn't do much work. I was really depressed. My wife saw that. I even went and talked to somebody. My wife calls it the voodoo doctor. It's really a psychologist. And I just talked a lot of my doubts and fears. Like this was my first big failure. This was my first big like fall on your ass. Excuse me if I'm,
it's funny.
You know what I mean? But this was my first thing that I was good at that just totally just went plap. Like just
everything that you were doing just like kept back and
everything collapsed,
punching you in the face.
You know what I mean? Everything. Like when I say from a business standpoint to a creative standpoint to everything was just going wrong. And it literally took a lot in me to realize like you learn from your failures, right? Like everybody says it until you go through it. And I actually really to this day believe that like you learn from your failures. And here I am, like, that was 2010 to 12. I went through that phase. We're at 18 right now, so I'm 6 years past that, right? So it's like I'm still learning, right, from that failure, but I've learned so much that it's made my foundation so strong. Like what I've created from that, right, and moving forward with Ground Rush and with all my other projects, right, has been it's amazing. Like it's a great thing that, you know, I'm like, well, I hope this thing's failed so I can learn something else and be stronger. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that. I mean, I don't want that to happen, but for the most part, it's one of those things where it's like, all right, cool. Like I learned from that. So here's what we build, and here's how we build Ground Rush back. So it's you know, so we're back on the rise, and we've been working on some really cool projects. One of the things that I've done during the process of, you know, rebuilding myself is I started saying to myself, you know, what is it that I have done over the years that's been so great? Like, I've been a great broadcaster, and that particular part of the industry I've excelled at. You know, the post-production stuff, being in radio, that's been like my thing. That's been my core, what I've always been good at. The video stuff, the digital stuff, all that stuff that we've talked about, yes, that's part of me, but that's not been my core piece. That's not been my branded piece that I've been known for. So I said to myself, well, what are you good at, and what can you do, and how can we get this company back off the ground? Well, during that time, while I was going through like these, you know, moments of like, I'm failing, what am I doing? I decided, this was about 8 years ago too as well, to start an online radio station, right? I was like, listen, this would be cool. Like, this could be another form of a business that I could start. I could put it underneath the Ground Rush umbrella, the marketing umbrella, where the firm would do all the creative for it. I'd have this really cool entity. I'd build it, and you know,
they will come.
And they will come, right? Like, and I didn't know what I was doing. Like, I was just like, I'll just build
I love it. It's just another recycling of like, all right, we're going from the ground
back up, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to build this radio station. So one of the original 8 that I spoke of that came into Ground Rush, he was my engineer, right? Good friend of mine, one of my good friends. His name's Mike Aran. He looked at me, he said, it's never going to work. I was like, what are you talking about? He goes, you're going to start an internet radio station. There's like a whole bunch of these, right? Like, what's going to separate you from everybody else? I was like,
true.
Dude,
it's true.
I was like, dude, we can do it. He's like, no way. I was like, I will bet you. He goes, how much? I said, $500. He goes, I was like, deal. I was like, what's the bet? He goes, 1 year. I said, 1 year what? He goes, 1 year you won't have more than 20 people listening to this stream, right? I'll take that bet. For sure, I'll take that bet. $500? No problem.
I wouldn't bet against you that much.
So I started researching it, right? I was like, listen, I know I'm not a terrestrial radio station. I don't have a tower. I don't have a big board. I don't have, like, you know, personalities and an office where I could do this. But I know enough about the radio business that I can recreate this whole situation in this room right here, right now. I can do it right now, right? Here's what we're going to do. So I kind of put the plan together. The thought was, all right, although it's online, we need to create a situation where people feel like they're still listening to a regular radio station. So I had my programming guys create like really cool apps where you can download the app, right, and put it on your phone at the time, because this is right when phones started getting apps and so on and so forth. You can put the app on your phone, and the minute you click it, it's on, right? Very similar to, like, as soon as you sit in your car, when you turn on the radio, it's on. There's no, what do I have to do, blah, blah. You click it, and it's on. So we created that. We created an opportunity, obviously, where you can listen online. And at the time, do you remember Ustream? It's live stream now.
With just the letter U and the stream?
Yeah.
I know of it, but not very much.
Back in the day, right? So we even created a situation where, all right, cool, you can listen and you can watch. Right, so we put a whole bunch of cameras in the studio.
Much like what's going on here.
Right, exactly. And we were streaming live, and like it was a live show. So, all right, cool. So I have all these situations. Now I need talent, right? So I got a friend of mine to agree to do a show with me, and we started one show on the station. The rest of the 24 hours, we just ran music, right? So every day at 2 o'clock, we'd come on and do a 4-hour show.
Consistency.
And then we just run music, right? People started hearing about it. Facebook started talking about it. So people started calling. It's like, can I get a show? Yeah, okay, well, we don't have space for it, but all right, cool, no problem. So we're just, like, at this point, we're like a month in, right? So I still got 11 months to go on my $500. I'm investing all this money into this for $500, but this was more so to shut him up than the money, right?
Yeah.
That don't ever tell me I can't. So these guys started calling me to do a show. So we started adding people on to our clock. And sure enough, we started filling up the clock. So now here I have a 24-hour radio station, 24 hours, right? With talent that's working at my radio station for free.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not paying anybody. They love the movement. They want to be part of it. I've just invested all the money in the equipment and the thought and the strategy of what we're going to do. Well, wouldn't you know it? The first guy that I brought in, his name was Kenny Burns. He's, amazing talent, amazing executive, knows all the people in the world. I couldn't have partnered with a better person. Like, Kenny was like, all right, cool. We're going to start stepping this up. We've been doing the show for a month now. Let's start having some guests on. The first guest that we had was Justin Bieber.
What?
Hold on.
What?
Hold on.
What?
But it's because of Kenny. Like, I had nothing to do with that. Justin Bieber.
That just
Hold on.
took a whole new.
Hold on. I have to tell. This is funny. So this is the first radio guest. Now for regular radio, that's normal, right? Justin's in town. He comes.
You're the internet.
I'm
though.
the internet, right? So he's our first guest, brother. It shuts down our server. Our server cannot handle the amount of traffic that's coming to the stream at this point. Like, we got locked down, right?
That's crazy.
But that was a pivotal moment where I said to myself, we're onto something here. And from then on, he continued bringing in guests. Everybody else started stepping it up. What was the bet? The bet was no more than 20 people. Bieber alone killed that, right?
Yeah.
We had killed that before, but Bieber alone, at the time, when Bieber was on, for us, we had it was 7,000 people at one time tried to hit our server, which shut it down. All at one time. Now, for most people, 7,000 isn't a lot. For a small internet radio station,
For a live stream, that's a lot.
that's a lot of people,
Yeah.
right? Especially if you don't have the bandwidth to handle it. And at the time, it's not like today. You know what I mean? So it was very controlled. So, so we were like, we need a bigger server if this ever happens again, right? Well, long story short, let's fast forward, right? Here we are coming to the end of the close of the bet. And I said to myself, too, I promised myself, I said, listen, I'm only doing this for a year because I didn't know how we were going to capitalize on this, all right? I didn't have a business model. This was just a bet between two friends, okay? So here we come we're coming to the end of the year, the 12 months, and we're now at 250,000 people, okay? It is to the point right now where anytime a label came into the market with an artist, they would go to the local radio stations, and we would be one of those radio stations they'd have to visit, right? So it'd be like, I'm going to V103, I'm going to Hot 107.9, and we call the stream Beehive, and we have to go to Beehive, right? Dude, we had Chico DeBarge, you name them, they came, right? So it got to the point where now radio stations started saying to themselves, the terrestrial radio stations started saying, who and what is this Beehive thing? This is locally in the market. General managers from radio stations were trying to come to my office to see what we were doing. You don't understand. I had an actual radio station placed in my office. I had a request line. I had a board. I had a studio. I had a place for producers. I had, all in the course of 12 months. The end of the 12 months came, and I said, I got to shut it down. And everybody was like, well, what do you mean? We're on to something. I said, I don't know what to do with it. You know what I mean? I said, we grew too fast. You know what I mean? And honestly, I just didn't feel like we had what it took to sell it. You know what I mean? I didn't have a business model. I didn't know what to do with it. I'm sorry, guys, I'm at a loss. So a lot of people are a little bit upset with me because it was just all right, cool. We believed in your vision, and all of a sudden you just crap all over us and tell us that it's done. And that was also something that was really hard to swallow. But I literally did not want to disappoint. I did not know what to do with it. My goal was just to get the listenership. And it wasn't even about the $500. It was all about somebody told me that I couldn't do something. And I was like, F off, dude. I can do whatever I say I can do, right? And I did it. So I shut it down and I said to myself, I'll just put it in a cabinet and shut the door and deal with it some other time, right? I have ground rush that I need to figure out. I need to get back to my advertising and marketing game and figure out how to jump back into that, right? So I started doing that. And once again, it came back, just like anything else. In any business, I've learned the ebbs and flows of it. 1 minute you're up, next minute you're down. So Ground Rush kind of came back, and we continued doing the same thing that we were doing. Still the audio, still the video, still the digital. We just did it differently because technology just changed differently.
The internet happened.
The internet happened,
Yeah.
which made it a lot easier for us.
And less FedExing.
Right, less FedExing. We didn't. I mean, my FedEx account just went away. The guy actually, FedEx and UPS actually sent me an email at one point, like, "Listen, you haven't logged in a while. We're going to cancel your stuff if you don't use it." Right?
Yeah.
Didn't need to. So we got back on track. It got to the point where I didn't need the guys to come into an office every day. We all evolved. We all got married, had kids, and I said, "Listen, we can all work from home and talk frequently." And send work, so that's what we do. You know what I mean? Send work here and there. You know what I mean? As work gets done, it goes to you. It's the same process. We're just in different locations. You know what I mean? And you're just at a point where you can now see your daughter grow up. You can do work, see your daughter grow up, and it's still business as usual, right? So we just did business differently. So that's been doing well, and that's actually the evolvement. The rise and fall of Ground Rush, rise and fall is always going to happen. And that's been there, and that's been doing well, and it runs itself. To a degree. I mean, we all work hard. So here I am. Ground Rush is back. We're doing well. I'm bored, right?
Mike with a bored mind
I'm bored.
is lethal.
Right. I'm
Lethal
bored.
to the business world.
Right. I'm bored. So what do I have and what can I do? Right. So I started opening those cabinets that I closed, and I opened the one cabinet. I said, "Oh, look, Beehive is still here. I remember I did something with that. Maybe I could bring it back and do something with it again." Right. So what I did about a year ago, I said, you know what? I'm just going to turn the stream back on. I'm not going to tell anybody about it. I'm just going to run music on the stream, on a backlink, and I'm just going to go running every day, because I run quite a bit for exercise. And I'm just going to listen to it. And as I see that I need to make some changes, I'll come back. I'll make the change. I'll go for another run and listen to it, and just kind of evolve the content of what I'm doing. So that's what I did for the past year. So I was like, all right, cool. I'm bringing Beehive back. That's it. We're coming back. Boom. I did a whole logo redesign. I had my guys do the logo redesign, do the website redesign. We're back, baby. This is it. We're coming back. Right? Once again, I didn't know what I was going to do with it, because I said to myself, if I think that there were a lot of internet radio stations back then, it's quadrupled.
Yeah.
Right? So I am about to be a very small fish in a very big pond. Right? And I don't know, once again, how to capitalize this. But I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to do it, right?
Yeah. You're smart about your business, though, and you're trying to, where's the market?
Where's the market for it? So, long story short, I am running one day listening to the stream. I live in this small neighborhood in Georgia called Decatur, Georgia. Very cool part of town, very eclectic, creative part of town. And
it's right next to Atlanta.
Right next to Atlanta. So I am running. And I'm looking, and it's actually a really, really great place to run. It's just creatives and it's just nice, the trees and blah, blah, blah. It's real zen-like. It's a really gnarly neighborhood to raise a family. So I'm doing my regular run, listening to the stream, and it hits me. I said, do I want to be a small fish in a big pond and try to start this Beehive thing? And, the thought was this. Do I have 300 people listening in LA, 300 people listening in New York, 300 people listening in Chicago, and then, and collectively that all, equals out to 200,000 people? Well, how do I sell that? Because I can't necessarily sell, I can't go to LA and say, listen, I have this stream. Well, how many people do you have? Well, I have 300 people listening in LA. Well, that's no use to me. Your audience is scattered all over the place. You know what I mean? So, or do I go to a national advertiser? Well, that's still not enough for them to get involved.
But you're in the situation where you just know from selling your media skills as with Ground Rush what to ask for,
right?
What to look for in the stream to monetize it.
Exactly.
God, that's so
exactly.
awesome.
So here I am running. And I'm saying to myself, is it, do you still want to do this? What are you doing? And then it hits me. I can't remember where I was. I was somewhere on my run. It was far away from the house, though, right? Somewhere on my run. And it hit me, man, like a lightning bolt. Boom. Why don't you dumb it down? You're thinking your thinking is way too big. Not saying that and I'm not trying to, bring myself down, saying, I shouldn't reach for the sky. What I mean by that is, you're thinking do a stream and talk to the entire country. No, don't do that. Bring it back, right? You have 25,000 people that live in the city of Decatur. Nobody has ever done anything like a community online radio station, strictly for your neighborhood. That's it. We don't care about anything else, just our neighborhood, right? My neighborhood is one that it can be, a lot of people, a lot of opinions, right? So I'm thinking to myself, you know what? This creates for great content, right?
Yeah.
So this creates for great content. This creates for a situation where we can talk about anything from our schools for our kids, what's going on in city government, to there's a blues band playing at the local bar that everybody goes to, right?
And it's relatable to just the people in Decatur.
So then I started thinking to myself, that's how you capitalize, right? You do it. Now, and to reverse back, just to step back a second, I'm not just going to, the thought wasn't just to do any and everything talking about just Decatur every single day. Just the theme of it would be our neighborhood, and that's who we cater to. Like, I don't care about anybody that lives in Atlanta. I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just, I'm a Decatur radio station, right? So the business model becomes, they're Decatur businesses that want to talk to Decatur residents, right? They don't really have that opportunity to do it directly. So it's more like niche marketing, right? Like It's more like that long tail keyword for any marketers out there. You drill down to such a finite group of people that you know will react to what you're saying versus a larger group, right? That, it could go either way. Like if I talked about a restaurant in Decatur, nobody in California cares about it, right? So if I'm talking to just Decatur and I'm saying restaurant up the street's doing, happy hour, $2 oysters, and I know that's a big hit, I'm talking to my audience.
Yeah.
Which means that guy that owns the oyster bar, it's in your best interest to place a buy with me, to advertise with me. There's my business model. That's the model. That's how you make some money doing it. That's how you capitalize on it, right? That's how you make it big. Big in my sense of saying it, right? That's how you make it into something. So I literally stopped the run. I was like, I got to get home, right? I have a workout that I have to do because I'm actually training for a race, but I'm like, man, screw the workout, man. Like, I got to get home. I have to let this out. Like, there's so much of it bursting at the seams. I got to put it on paper.
It's
right?
it's like when you stopped and you got let go and you were staring up at the ceiling.
Exactly.
It's like you're having one of those moments where you're just like, I need to get everything out right now.
Right now.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that happens. I get home, right? I start writing it out. Like, here's what I could do. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to just do it for Decatur, just to 25,000 people. And, I have some great ideas for what we're going to do. So then I started thinking to myself, now here comes the larger scale. So I said, listen, this is great, right? Hold on a second. Like, this is like, nobody's ever done this. So let's do this. So in my career, I've worked for various broadcast companies, okay? Whether it's working for them directly or doing freelance for them, whether it's CBS, Radio 1, Cumulus, Citadel Broadcasting. I've worked for all of them, Clear Channel, you name it, right? What these guys basically do is they acquire radio stations, or they'll build radio stations and place them into large markets, right? And small markets too as well. Like, I'll take a station and put it in Atlanta. I'll take another radio station and put it in Macon, right? So on and so forth. Within those cities, though, obviously you got your little cities, right? So Atlanta would be boom for Clear Channel, but they're still reaching out not just to Atlanta, Decatur, like anything that, within their radius of their... it's
Gwinnett.
bigger. It's a bigger situation.
Yeah.
Nobody has ever done... So I have deemed them as major broadcasters. Nobody has ever done or become a micro broadcaster, right? So I will so the thought was, let's put radio stations in neighborhoods, internet radio stations in neighborhoods, just about the neighborhood. That's it, right? You don't care about anybody outside. You just care about your bubble, right? What's going on within your hood. So I built the Decatur model, the Decatur FM model. That's what I'm calling it, Decatur FM. I built the Decatur FM model with the thought that it just becomes copy and paste, right? I've already built the technology for it, so all I would need to do, like we have this really cool neighborhood next door called Kirkwood, right? So I'm Kirkwood FM. When it's time for Kirkwood FM, I just basically took what I did for Decatur FM, put it in Kirkwood, and just find a group of guys that are just Kirkwood junkies, that they just care about their neighborhood so much, and let them talk about their neighborhood. Then I'll do the same thing for a neighborhood next door. And you start building this cluster of radio stations as a micro broadcaster. So what happens now? You're thinking to yourself like, okay, cool, so radio station. So what happens is you have these eclectic neighborhoods that people tend to visit. You know what I mean? Like, I'll go to Kirkwood and hang out. Well, I want to know what's going on in Kirkwood. Well, cool. You just go to the app, look for the Kirkwood FM station, click it, boom. Anything and everything going on in this Kirkwood is right there. You know what I mean? Audio-wise. Like, anything from, local entertainment to local politics to local whatever, right? How am I solving a need? Well, think about it. If you're thinking about moving to Kirkwood, right? Tune in, see what's going on. If you're thinking about taking your wife to dinner in Kirkwood, tune in, see what they're doing, see what chef is hot right now in Kirkwood. Or maybe I want to go to Decatur. Go to the Decatur FM app, right? Boom. So my thought was like, okay, cool. Beehive was the first thing I started, right? So let Beehive Broadcasting become the umbrella company. And it just owns radio stations under that, kind of like how Clear Channel does. Clear Channel or Radio 1 or CBS. CBS owns V103 in Atlanta. CBS owns V103 in Baltimore. CBS owns WPGC. So they have their broadcasting company and then the stations, their portfolio. I'm going to do the same thing on a micro level. That's the plan, right? So what that does is that allows me to create this cluster of broadcast facilities and just have it under one umbrella. So when you download the app, whether it's on, your Amazon Echo unit or the phone, you pretty much just go to that, boom, and you can listen, and that's it. So that's kind of, that's the long-term goal where I want to go. Decatur FM is really the start of that goal and what we're doing, right? So here I am 13 months later, the station is built. Station is actually getting ready to be launched.
And you have the mayor, don't you?
Yeah, the station's getting ready to be launched actually next month. I mean, it's on right now. Shameless plug, decaturfm.com on the App Store and Google Play. But anyway.
I think by the time this episode will go, it'd probably be released.
It's already out right now. Apple iTunes Store and Google Play. But anyway, regardless. But it being launched and having like pivotal people involved. So so I actually went up to City Hall with the intention of getting the city involved. And after pitching the story to them, they were like, "This is a no-brainer," because what happens is, I don't know if it's in your neighborhood, my neighborhood, you look around, like there's nothing like this. Like there's a lot of people that do city blogs and local newspapers, but nobody's doing like an actual community online radio station for your neighborhood in which you can have a voice. You know what I mean? So, and the reason why I decided to kind of change things from the Beehive model to more of a local community feel is, I went, like I said before, when the company shut down, I went through a lot of things. And I went through a lot of things and I had a lot of questions, right? And there were so many questions that I had just, about me failing, about, just my health and the direction that I was going, like just so many questions. I didn't have anybody to answer that question. And I said to myself, like, if I could create a platform where we can all sit and talk as a community, maybe, you're going through something that I can help you with, and I'm going through something that you can help me with, and we can start a dialogue, right? And it's all about changing a life. Like a friend of mine told me during the process of building this or bringing it back, he asked me, he said, "How are you going to change the world?" Right? And I looked at him kind of funny because he does really well for himself. And I was just like, dude, you could change the world easily. You just write a check or, people will follow. I said, I don't have that kind of cake. I don't have that kind of dough. Right? All I have is, I have some talents, I have some gifts, and I have a drive, but I don't really think I can move the needle like that. And he's like, that's all you need. Like, you're talking about resources. I'm talking about you being resourceful. You got to get out there and figure out how you're going to change it. Like, he goes, what's different? Like, if I gave you $10 million, right? And then he stopped. He said, I'm not going to give you $10 million, by the way, because my eyes perked up like you are. He said, what would you do? And I was like, well, I could do this. I could do that. I said, so what's different than you if you didn't have the money? What makes you not able to do that? And I thought about it, and I was like, he's right. Like, how do I make my mark, right? Mm-hmm. How do I change a life, even one, right? And how do I, just create an opportunity for people to just speak and have a voice and talk? I said, there's no better way. Like, I'm good at what I do, You know what I mean? Just like you're good at what you do, right? So if I'm that dope, and nobody's ever, like, people in my neighborhood, they've probably never experienced what I'm about to, put on them. This is great. This is amazing. So, long story short, and I say that a lot, by the way. But,
I noticed.
I say that's like my crutch. But what what we've decided to do is we've decided to go in that direction. Like, we're all about creating community. We're all about creating a space for people to talk. We're all about, like, changing lives. I've seen so many of my friends, man, like, from a career standpoint, from a health standpoint, from a political standpoint, just dwindle. Just they don't have the right clue, or they just don't know. And there are things that I can help them with. There are things that they can help me with. And just because of ego and everything else, we just don't. So if I can create a place where we can do all that, you know what I mean, on so many different accords, think about what that can do. I mean, just sitting here, and I'll tell everybody right now, I'm sitting here on your podcast as a result of me creating this stream. It's how you and I met.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And I mean, for anybody who wants to know, like, I created this, I basically built this radio station again, and I built it, like, in my garage, in my studio, and Javier was over at my neighbor's house, who he's good friends with, right? And he needed to record his podcast one day because what happened? Somebody
rescheduled, and I actually ended up. You could go thrice-fold into this story. A cork in the road. I was out at a get-together, and I was just like, oh, my guest needs to reschedule to a later time, and I'm here in Atlanta. I still want to get material out. I need to find somebody, and I would love to have you on the podcast. So I start talking to her. She's like, yeah, let's do the podcast. But in my circumstance, I don't have a space. Right. So I'm like, cool, where do you want to do it? And then we start talking, and we were in a basement a couple houses down from this area. And a mutual friend of ours was like, well, I kind of know a guy. Yeah. And then, which is me. Yeah. Yeah. And then Mike gets a call, like, after midnight, the day before I was going to do the podcast, and was like, hey, there's this guy. He needs a studio to record some. I knew nothing about it, but you could take it from there. So,
I show up, and, Javier and I get to talking, and, he tells me about his podcast and he needs to record. I was like, absolutely, sure, why not? I mean, that's just the type of person, one, I am, and two, we had a lot in common as far as, like, recording and some of the people that we worked with before, which is like, just like 6 degrees of separation. Whoa, this is creepy. But I say that to say, like, once again, everything that I'm doing moving forward, like, and things that I've learned in my past, and the successes I've had and the failures that I've had, and having this new thought process now of, like, I want to change the world and change a life, like, it just kind of unfolds, and you just don't even see that it's unfolding. Like, we met, and then next thing you know, I met Kelly from Cork in the Road. You did an interview with her. Yep. Now she's going to be on my stream. Yep. You know what I mean? Like, it's just how things flow and how you change lives, and then
Nick Hagelin came in.
Yeah, exactly. So we've been, like, so it's just one of those things where it's like, this just kind of confirms what I'm doing is correct. You know what I mean? And I say that, like, I guess the lesson in all of this is, like, you kind of sit back sometimes and you kind of say, sometimes you just got to listen to your gut, right? Mm-hmm. And although, like, it's like, you should be going this way, but my gut is telling me I need to be here, then do it. Because you just don't know, you'll never know. You know what I mean? If you always choose what's safe, right, you'll never know what you could have been, And I think one of the things that I respect about you and your podcast, especially the name of it and the passion, progress and passion, and passion and progress, and it speaks so true of, one, who you are, and two, when it actually goes into, like, when somebody's actually doing something that they're passionate about and the progress of it,
Yep.
right? And how the progress moves because of the passion.
Yep.
Like they go like it's the yin and the yang. I wouldn't even say it's a yin and a yang. I mean, there is some opposites to it, but it fits so perfectly. It fits like a glove. Like if the passion isn't there, you will have no progress.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And if there is progress and you don't have passion, then it just doesn't work.
Yep.
Right? So, I think, moving forward, like, it's just one of those things where I'm seeing, like, it's changing a life. And I always say to myself, like, well, whose life is it changing right now? It's changing mine right now. You know what I mean? And if it's not, and I always said, like, as long as it changes one life, and I'm not excluded from that life, you know what I mean? Then it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
So, so that's where I'm at, and that's the direction I'm going. And, my story in a nutshell, I didn't mean to burst it all out or belt it all out, but that's just, where I'm at right now and where it's going right now. I do know there's some things I do know and there's some things I don't know, and I'm all right with not knowing those things because there's a couple people that I follow very closely, and there's this one CEO of this really cool company that I follow. His name's Naveen Jain, and he always says, when you're going through obstacles, you worry about it when you get there. Like, we invest so much effort and time in, like, I'll never be able to do that. Bro, worry about it when you get there. The first thing you need to do is do something, right?
Yeah.
Like, you have to get up and do something. Like, and I'm just as guilty as the next person every time I fall into that, where it's like, I think of the bigger picture, because my head says to me, like, my mind says to me, like, radio station, big, micro broadcaster, you need like 2,500 to 3,000 of these things to be successful. How are you going to do that? How are you going to afford that? Bro, you haven't even filled out an application to start the company yet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, let's start there.
Yep. Yeah.
And then everything else will kind of fall into place.
Yep.
And that's where I'm at, and that's where life is taking me right now. And where I'm at.
You put out what you get back, basically.
All the time.
Like if you're putting out positive vibes, positivity, like helping people out, it comes back and all that stuff. Negativity, I would say this is definitely a blanket statement, but for the last like couple months to a year pursuing all this stuff, I can definitely see in my own personal endeavors, like helping and like trying to. One of the main reasons why I started my podcast is, like you were saying, was I really wanted to help people and like do all this stuff, but I didn't like, one, what platform do I have to do that, and then two, I wanted to do a whole bunch of like video editing things and all that stuff, but there's only so much that I can do, and because that's like super niche down, and I wanted some way to pivot it and have some way to, one, talk to anybody that I wanted to and have like a discussion with them. But as I progress in this endeavor, the one thing I love about it is sitting down with a whole bunch of people that are like so much farther down the line of business and everything, and like all that, and like hearing from their experiences. But also, as it grows and everything, I find that some of the people that I have conversations with are like, there's this one guy, Harvey Danger Films. He doesn't have too much of a following, but I talked to him about what he was doing, and I heard this story about his perseverance of like getting hit by a car, and he was a triathlete, and then he pivoted, he picked up video, and then he films his daughters and everything. He does his YouTube channel, one, because he loves the video stuff, but two, because he has short-term memory loss now. So now he can go back and he can watch these videos and all that stuff. And it's like hearing stories like this, like, man, it gives you so much perspective.
But here's the other thing too, though. I mean, in going back to that, like, one thing that I would say, as you talk about building your podcast and where it's at now and where it's going, I don't necessarily think you should compare. Like, there's so many other people that are, they're here and I'm here, that like that's not even comparing apples to apples.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, you can't do that. And I used to do that a lot, and I still kind of do that to a degree. I do that mainly like with like, I don't do it with business more so than I do like with workouts and so on and so forth. Like, I'll have like a friend of mine who's like a better runner than I am, right?
Running's so tough though, because there's so much capability.
But still though, like, even I'm just using that as an example because I've been running so long. But he's so much. I wouldn't say he's so much of a better athlete. He's just built differently than I am.
Yep.
Right. So his skill set is way different.
Yep.
Not to mention he's also 7 years younger than me. But regardless, the way I look at it is, what I used to look at is like, listen, he is a way superior athlete than I am. I could never hold his pace. I could never, do a race with him. I can never blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, yeah.
And I kept saying that to myself. And just recently, I started hearing from some of my other mentoring type of people or mentoring type of media outlets where it's been said, like, listen, you got to even the playing fields, right? Like, you got to know your terrain and even the playing fields on your terrain. Like with this runner situation or example I'm giving you, like, he's really good at running because of X, right? He's, more flexible, more agile, so on and so forth. You're not, right? So you have to even those playing fields. So, stretch yourself out, go to yoga, get back on your game, blah, 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 blah. And then you even those playing fields. So now you can keep up with him, right? And even at that point, so I go to yoga and I start doing all this stuff and I'm trying to, I'm going to get him. I'm going to race him. Still the wrong mindset.
You can't tell Mike what he can and cannot
Right, exactly.
do.
But now I'm learning it's still the wrong mindset. It's not me versus them. It's you versus you. Like, you see all these things like on the shirts and people posting it on Instagram and Facebook, like you versus you, and you kind of like, that's just some dude talking, blah, blah. But there is a lot of truth to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not competing. So you're not competing against like the person that's ahead of you because you don't want to be them. Javier wants to be Javier. Mike wants to be Mike. You know what I mean? Kelly wants to be Kelly with her, with her Cork in the Road podcast. Like, we all want to be ourselves. So our race is within ourselves. So no matter whether you have 300 people, you're 300 people, all right? Or 400 people, or 500 people, or however many followers you have, I have, the 50 or whatever. They're more viable and they're more concentrated to listen to me and deal with me than if I had 15,000 people that never tuned into my broadcast. Like, that number at the bottom is cool, but if nobody's watching it or nobody's taking it in,
engagement.
You know what I mean? Come on, man. I've watched some of your I watched one of your podcasts the other day about the mics. Like, you did this really cool like mic comparison, right?
Yeah.
So I hit you. I was like, what do I need to do to make my mic sound great, right? But still, though, but honestly, though, I really sat through that and listened to that, right? Yeah. And I mean, if you want to know how you change, like, how do you change your life? Like, literally, the last time you came here, right, I had different mics up.
Yep, exactly.
And then I listened to your podcast. I was like, you might be onto something. I may not want to do that, but I want to switch out to something else. So you changed your thinking.
Yeah.
So guess what? Job done. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Task completed. Mission accomplished.
Yep.
You did your thing.
Yeah.
So, moving forward, like, that's the whole thought process. Like, I'm trying not to get sucked into the way the world is. Like, you got to have all these followers and you got to have, like, man, just stay in your lane, stay focused, concentrate on your core. My father-in-law always said that. My father-in-law was, an amazing strategist, CEO. Like, I've learned so much from him, right? And he's always said, focus on your core, focus on what you're good at, right? And the problem is most people, they get so bored with it, right? They get bored with core because you get so good at it, right? What's the saying? It takes 20,000 hours to be a master at something, right?
Yeah.
Something like that.
And then like on the flip side, but it only takes like one. I know. With the sword, it takes like X amount of like slashes to become a master.
Yeah,
or
something like that.
Go, continue.
I've already exceeded that. So what happens after you exceed that is like, it's kind of boring. But I need to focus more on that more than anything else to constantly keep that strong, and you know what I mean, always like my center focus, because that is what is going to spawn everything else. And if that's not strong, whatever I build over here ain't going to be strong.
Yeah.
Whatever I build over here, it's not going to be strong. So if your thing is, as you build your podcast, and I mean, just looking at your stuff, and listen, if you're just scrolling through and you're just wondering what this is, like, you need to look at the rest of this man's episodes and I
put in the work.
I went in one day and I said, babe, did you know that you can actually cook meat on a salt block? I was like,
you watched that one?
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I was just like, are you serious? She's like, yeah. I was like, I never knew that. Like, there was an episode that you did, like, videographers. If you're looking to get a job, here's what you need to do.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
Brother, like, if you give a young kid an opportunity to land a gig just by your message, done your job.
Yeah.
And that's the whole that's the whole attitude that I'm having moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
Like before, it was always about, Ground Rush and let me build this and let me be good at what I do, and we're like marketing geniuses and we'll make a whole bunch of cake, meaning we'll make a whole bunch of money and blah blah blah. It's not what it's up. I mean, it's not about that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like money comes and goes.
Mm-hmm.
But if I could sit here and tell a person who's suffering from diabetes, like, listen, we're all, in Decatur. Like, listen, we're doing a run group, and it ain't nothing serious. You need to come out. You need to stay healthy because I want to see you live to be 125. And if they come out and they do that and things change, listen, brother, I couldn't be more happier.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? The money, the time, the effort that I invested into all of this made all the sense in the world. And if that means that I just needed to do that and then shut this thing down because it didn't work, but that was my purpose of doing it, that's my purpose. Mm-hmm. It doesn't sound like, and this may sound like real foo-foo and, like I'm not having a Jesus moment. I'm not having, you know what I mean? It's not like that. It's just like literally like we need to look out for each other, and we need to kind of create these spaces and things that you're doing, to better ourselves and better other lives. So
there you go.
That's kind of where it is.
Mike Johnson.
Yeah, man.
I would ask the question that I do at the end of each podcast of like if somebody was to set out and do what you have done in terms of like building a business and all that stuff, but I feel like in the message that you just said, that's kind of the answer. It's like focus on what you want to bring value to other people within.
I can't tell you
the world.
I can't tell. I could guide you like. And I look for guidance all the time. Like for us, a lot of times, man, there's a guy that I follow on Instagram, man. Like he got introduced to me through another friend. His name's David Goggins. He's a Navy SEAL and an all-around badass. I swear this dude is like, first of all, he's amazing, right? Just some of the trials and tribulations he's gone through in life, right? And, I'll go through his Instagram page because he'll post a lot of videos, and I'll go and I'll do a lot of reruns of some videos I've watched before. He said, we spend a lot of our time in life looking for answers, looking for confirmation, if you would. I'm paraphrasing here, but and a lot of times a lot of the answers is right up here, and he points to his head. It's right in your mind, right? So as you go about your life trying to say, I need to do this, I need to do this, we all kind of look to each other for like, should I do this? Should I do that? That ain't the person that's going to answer it for you.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's you. Like, and as hard as it is, and it's hard, man. It's hard for everybody, as we go through. Like, this is just a different form of starting your business, starting your business or whatever it is you're trying to change in your life.
In life, yeah.
It ain't. Don't look to the next man. Whether it's, and I don't care who it is. It could be your mother, your father, your doctor, because a lot of us fall into that, you know what I mean, where our doctors pretty much dictate our lives and our health, you know what I mean? Or somebody else, your best friend, like they're not the ones, they don't have to walk the path.
Mm-hmm.
You got to walk your own path, right? And everybody's path is always different, and I just hope that people can take that and try to do that, because I'm going through that right now, and I'm starting to learn that, in everything that I'm doing, like I have to really be the one to get out and walk the path. And a lot of times I'm lazy. Sometimes I don't want to walk the path, or I procrastinate it. Like, I'll walk the path tomorrow.
There we go.
And I never go. And that's all on me. So I just say that.
That's the title of the episode right there. Walk the path.
Walk the path. You got
Mike Johnson, founder of Ground Rush Media.
Bam. I had fun, man.
Yeah.
This is great.
Where can people find you?
All right, so right now I'm telling everybody to find me at Decatur FM. Just
do it
at Decatur FM on Instagram, at Decatur FM on Facebook. We have like no viewers right now because our social literally. Well, no, hold on. Yeah, you're right. This is in the future right now, so hopefully we have some followers. But yeah, at Decatur FM. If you're looking to find me personally, I'm a big comic book fanatic, so you can find me at Bruce Wayne, the number 9. And there's no significance to the number 9. It's just because Bruce Wayne was not available, and neither was 1 through 8. So I picked 9. So that's where you can find me, and decaturfm.com, or you can just go to groundrushinc.com and read about us and check us out. So
there you go, man.
Yeah.
So much to be said for facts tell and stories definitely sell. Like the story behind all of the stuff that you've talked about on this podcast is That's many, like, my mind blown.
Maybe a lot, yeah. Sometimes. I got ADD too. So, yeah.
What a great story. Thank you so much. And thank you for letting us use your space as well.
You guys are welcome anytime. Anytime. So, and I expect to see more people as you add on to this great big broadcast that we're doing. Be like, yes, this is Javier's assistant. I'd like to book your studio for another podcast. I see that coming real soon.
He's coming through ATL. He needs space for
and
it
I
this
swear,
time.
and I'll tell you this, I swear to God, if that ever happens, I will beat you to a pulp, because I'll be like, this mofo doesn't even have the nerve to call me directly anymore. I'm talking to assistants now. So I look forward to that day to happen. It's going to happen soon too.
That's the $500 bet right there.
There it is. I'll bet you $500 you're not going to let an assistant call me. Yeah, I'll take that bet.
Awesome. If you want to connect with me on social media, go ahead and look up Passion in Progress on the YouTubes. Don't forget to leave a review on iTunes. That's how this stuff gets shared. If you liked what you heard here, I can't see why you wouldn't. Please share this podcast with somebody else. It's some pretty cool material. I love the story, man. Thank you so much again, and I will see you guys / hear you guys, talk to you guys on the next one. Javier Mercedes out. Thank you.